What happens when you take the keys to the world's ultimate capitalist machine, New York City, and you hand them over to a Democratic Socialist who promised to dismantle the engine?
You don't just get a change in driver, you get a collision course. And right now, in January 2026, we are watching the crash test happen in real time.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at the single most fascinating political experiment in the United States right now. Zohran Mamdani has just been inaugurated as the mayor of New York City.
It's a huge moment. I mean, regardless of your politics, he's 34 years old, he's a former rapper, and he is the first Muslim mayor in the city's history.
And he didn't just run on a platform of, hope and change. He ran on a platform of revolution.
But as the old saying goes, you campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose.
And the prose coming out of City Hall right now is, well, it's confusing a lot of people.
Confusing is, putting it mildly, the revolution is hitting the wall of reality. Hard.
Exactly. So we're looking at a transition that's being called a hybrid administration, and it seems to be managing the pretty impressive feat of angering absolutely everyone.
Everyone, from the right-wing press to the very progressives who knocked on doors for him.
So that's our mission today. We are going to unpack the specific personnel choices Mamdani has made, the explosive controversies around his inner circle, and the big question. Can this mix of radical activists and veteran bureaucrats actually govern a city facing a very real threat from a Trump White House?
It's the ultimate test case. Can ideological socialism survive contact with the gritty bureaucratic reality of running New York?
Let's start with the team itself. Because usually when a quote-unquote revolutionary candidate wins, you expect a clean sweep, right? You bring in the true believers.
But if you look at the org chart for City Hall right now, it looks less like a unified government and more like a team of rivals.
So a team of contradictions.
Well, right. You have to remember, Mamdani has a specific vulnerability here. He has the vision, he has the rhetoric, he has the mandate. What he doesn't have is executive management experience.
Right. He's never run an agency.
Never managed a payroll. Never had to negotiate a sanitation contract during a blizzard. So he's trying to balance the revolutionaries with the people who, actually know where the bathroom keys are.
And that leads us right to the old guard, the technocrats.
Precisely. He's terrified of the city grinding to a halt. So look at his pick for first deputy mayor, Dean Fullahan.
For listeners who don't follow the minutia of NYC municipal politics, which is most people, why does that name matter?
Because Fullahan is the establishment. He's 74 years old. He was a top official in the Bill de Blasio administration. He's the guy you called to fix the plumbing in government.
So he knows the budget, he knows Albany, he knows the machinery.
Exactly. Mamdani brings him in because he needs someone to keep the lights on while he's out making speeches about the revolution.
And he didn't stop there. He kept Sharif Suleiman as budget director.
Which is huge. Suleiman has served under 3 different mayors now. 3. He's managing a $115 billion budget. He isn't an activist. He's a calculator.
It signals that Mamdani knows the math has to work, even if the ideology is lofty.
Right. But then you have the curveball, the one that really confused the base, the one that made the activists just scratch their heads.
Ask Tish.
The police commissioner.
This is the one I can't wrap my head around. Mamdani ran on a platform supported by people explicitly calling to defund the police. His transition team had activists who signed letters demanding billion-dollar cuts to the NYPD.
And yet, who does he keep in charge of the cops?
Jessica Tish, who comes from a billionaire family and is a longtime bureaucrat. She's tech-focused, data-driven, and very much a law and order manager.
It's a fascinating move. It signals that Mamdani, despite all the rhetoric, is terrified of the crime narrative.
He knows he can't afford a breakdown in public safety, especially with the eyes of the country on him.
Absolutely not. But this creates massive friction, doesn't it? You have a mayor who says one thing to get elected and does another to survive. Reason magazine pointed this out.
Right. They mentioned his transition team included people like Alana Leopold, who explicitly called for defunding.
And yet, Tish remains. Reason called it a confusing mandate. And I think that's the perfect phrase for it. It's incoherent.
Well, speaking of driving the car off the road, let's talk about the first major political stumble. And this isn't just about policy. This is about identity and power.
This is the coalition fracture.
Yeah.
And it happened almost immediately.
To put it bluntly, the coalition of black and brown voters that helped elect him is furious.
And if you look at the raw numbers, you can see why. Mamdani appointed 5 top deputy mayors. These are the people who actually run the city.
And how many of them are black?
Zero.
Zero.
In a city where black and brown residents are the majority, he has one Latino deputy mayor, Helen Arteaga, for Health and Human Services, but for the first time in 50 years.
50 years.
A New York City administration has no black deputy mayor.
That is a staggering statistic. I mean, that goes back before Mayor Dinkins. That's a lifetime in politics.
It is. And the backlash was instantaneous. You have Taquana Henderson Rivers, a prominent strategist, saying the administration is acting as if race doesn't matter.
And this plays right into a critique we saw in Town Hall from Jeff Charles. He argued this is the classic Democratic playbook: exploit black voters during an election, then ignore them when it's time to govern.
It's a validation of that skepticism for sure. You see, during the campaign, Mamdani spent months in black churches. He knew he needed to do better with black voters, but when it came time to hand out the real power, the operational power,
Yeah.
those seats went elsewhere.
Now, to be fair, he did try to put out the fire. He appointed Afua Adamensa.
Right, as the chief equity officer and commissioner of the mayor's Office of Equity and Racial Justice.
And her background is legit. I mean, she led Community Voices Heard, a major black-led organizing group. She was his political director. So, problem solved.
Well, here's this so what behind this and why the controversy hasn't gone away. Critics are arguing that a chief equity officer is just not the same as a deputy mayor.
How so?
In city government, titles matter, but portfolios matter more. Deputy mayors control agencies, they control hiring, they control budgets. An equity officer is essentially an advisor.
So it's the difference between being the CEO of a division and being a consultant.
That's a perfect way to put it. It signals a detachment. It suggests that equity is a side project, not the central operating system. And for a socialist mayor who ran on racial justice, that is a really dangerous signal to send to your base.
It feels like he's trying to please everyone and ending up pleasing no one. But, okay, if the technocrats are keeping the lights on and the equity appointment is trying to calm the base, let's talk about the appointments that are absolutely terrifying the conservatives and the business community.
The radicals. This is where it gets really interesting.
Well, let's start with housing.
The single biggest issue in the city. Rent is too high. Availability is too low.
Right.
It's a crisis.
So Mamdani appoints C. Weaver as the director of the mayor's office to protect tenants. Now, she is a member of the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America.
And a very effective activist. But her appointment has resurfaced some, let's call them ideologically potent, statements.
That's a polite way of putting it. There was a tweet from 2019 that got dug up. Weaver wrote that homeownership is a weapon of white supremacy masquerading as wealth building.
Let that just sink in for a second. A weapon of white supremacy.
She also tweeted in 2017 that we should elect more communists.
And see, this is the core conflict. In the traditional American view, homeownership is the primary vehicle for stability. It's the American dream.
It's how black and brown families have historically built wealth.
Exactly. But Weaver's view is that property should be a collective good.
Former Mayor Eric Adams did not mince words about this. He blasted the pick on X. He said, and I'm censoring here, you have to be completely out of your FUV mind.
And Adams has the data on his side when it comes to aspiration. People want to own homes. But Mamdani and Weaver, they're looking at the disparity. They see black homeownership in NYC is only around 32% compared to 46% for whites.
Okay, but isn't the usual solution to that help more black people buy homes?
Right. That's the traditional liberal or moderate approach.
Mm-hmm.
But the socialist ideology here suggests dismantling the concept of private ownership itself because they view it as inherently unequal. That is a fundamental ideological war now being waged from inside City Hall.
It's not just housing, though. It's the economy. Let's talk about Darrick Hamilton.
His economic advisor. He's the founding director of the Institute on Race, Power, and Political Economy at the New School.
And he's a huge advocate for baby bonds. Can you just break that down for us?
Sure. It's a proposal where the government gives a trust fund to every child at birth, but the amount is tiered based on the family's wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So a child born into poverty gets a much larger bond. The idea is to close the racial wealth gap at the root.
That sounds like a policy debate, but it's his rhetoric that has people on edge. He says the U.S. economy is ingrained with the devaluation of black lives.
And critics, like Yvette Carnell, call him clueless. Conservatives just see him as a reparations activist who is now steering the economic ship of the world's financial capital.
So just to recap the internal team, you have a budget director who's a by-the-book bureaucrat and an economic advisor who wants to restructure the entire capitalist system.
That's the tension. And that's the danger of the hybrid strategy. These aren't just differences of opinion. They're differences of reality. How do you govern when your own brain is fighting itself?
And while the brain is fighting itself, there's a very large wolf at the door.
The Trump administration.
We're in 2026. President Trump is back in the White House, and he is looking right at New York City.
He's looking at it as a target.
Mamdani reached out to Trump, but apparently he's been left on read. They haven't connected, but the threats are already flying.
And it's not just bluster. Look at what Harmeet Dillon from the DOJ said. She stated the DOJ is on high alert regarding Mamdani's radical agenda.
Specifically, civil rights violations. And this is a really interesting legal pivot, isn't it?
It's a fascinating turn. Usually we think of civil rights law as protecting marginalized groups. But the DOJ is arguing that if Mamdani's policies, like those pushed by Weaver, discriminate against white homeowners or landlords, that's a civil rights violation.
So they're using the Civil Rights Act to protect landlords.
They're using the language of civil rights to protect property owners against the socialist agenda. It's a strategy designed to tie the city up in federal court for years.
So how is he preparing for this legal war?
He's building what looks like a war council. He appointed Ramzi Qassem, a former Biden advisor, as chief counsel, and he nominated Stephen Banks, the Legal Aid Society veteran, as corporation counsel.
These are not rookies.
No. Banks knows how to sue the government. He did it for years. These are heavy hitters. They are gearing up for battles over immigration, ICE, funding, everything.
So you've got the internal war between technocrats and radicals. You have the external war with Trump. Is there anyone left to check Mamdani's power locally?
The city council. And this is where the checks and balances come in. The council elected Julie Menon as their leader.
And she's considered a moderate, right?
By New York standards, absolutely. She's not a DSA member. Her election suggests the legislative branch isn't going to just rubber stamp the revolution. They might actually be the firewall.
So every direction he turns, there's a wall.
And he built some of those walls himself. That confusing mandate creates paralysis. You cannot have a housing director who hates private property and a deputy mayor for housing who's trying to incentivize developers to build.
It's like trying to drive a car in two directions at once.
And the transmission is going to blow. That's the concern.
So let's unpack this for the listener. Why does this matter? Maybe you don't live in New York. Maybe you don't care about zoning laws in Queens.
You should care, because this is a laboratory. For years, we've heard the theory of democratic socialism. We've heard the slogans, housing is a human right, defund the police, equity over equality. Well, now those theories are in power in the most complex city in America.
It's the difference between tweeting and governing.
Exactly. Zohran Mamdani is attempting a high-wire act. He is trying to satisfy a radical base that wants to dismantle the system while also trying to placate the business class so the city doesn't collapse. And he's doing all of it while facing a hostile federal government and a black constituency that already feels alienated.
It sounds like an impossible job.
It might be. The risk isn't just that he fails. The risk is that the city becomes ungovernable. If the agencies stop working because the leadership is at war with itself, garbage doesn't get picked up, crime goes up, investment leaves.
And looking at the personnel, it really does seem like he's inviting that conflict.
He calls it a team of rivals. But in management, you need a shared vision. I don't see a shared vision between Dean Foulihan and Seaweaver. I see a cage match.
Mamdani said in his victory speech, "There is no problem too large for government to solve."
That is the ultimate progressive faith right there.
But looking at this fractured team, half trying to dismantle the system, half trying to manage it, the real question isn't whether government can solve the problems. It's whether this specific government will tear itself apart before it even gets started.
And if it does, the people who suffer won't be the activists with trust funds. It'll be the working class New Yorkers he promised to save.
That is a sobering thought to end on. We'll be watching closely as this experiment unfolds. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.